masculine and feminine energy. So, masculine and feminine energy are two categories of energy that has been discussed for centuries. So we'll get a little bit into that discussion, but first we have to come to kind of a consensus on what we mean by energy. So, um, the energy is a term that we'll throw at things that are metaphysical. And for the sake of our discussion today, we're just going to use it in a broad sense towards things that exist that are powerful, but in the metaphysical. A metaphysical meaning beyond what you perceive with the physical eyes and can touch with the hands, beyond what you can see in the physical realm. There's other aspects to life that are metaphysical. For instance, if you see two people walking next to each other, then you might say, okay, these are friends. The concept of these two people being friends, or at least standing next to each other, is physical, but the concept of friendship is metaphysical. And so that's what I mean when I say metaphysical. Like, what is friendship? How do you quantify that concept? There is no way physically to quantify friendship. Like how are they friends? So what would they quantify that as physically? Maybe in some cases time spent, but not all friendships are like that. In some cases, it's having a lot of good experiences together, but some friendships could be born through trauma and bad experiences. So what makes them friends? It's not really quantifiable by anything physical. This is just an unspoken agreement that they have. Most of our friendships don't have literal contracts. This is why we call it metaphysical. It's just an idea. And ideas are energy, are they not? In fact, quite literally in your brain, what scientists perceive, what you got floating around in that brain there, or rather darting around at the speed of a bullet train is electrical and chemical impulses, your thoughts. So thoughts are energy, ideas are energy. So masculine energy incorporates a set of traits, and feminine energy represents a set of traits. And in ancient Taoism, which is a Chinese philosophical, spiritual idea of like getting into harmony with nature, they used to talk about these different concepts, which they called the yin and the yang of being in harmony with one another and saying that that was very important to be in harmony. But the concepts of masculine and feminine energy transcend spiritual discussion. In fact, for centuries, this has been discussed. Famously, the psychologist Carl Jung um, discussed masculine and feminine energy in psychology. And today we're going to be discussing these traits in terms of trauma and psychology and how to use these traits to overcome trauma, how to heal in our way of interacting with these masculine and feminine traits. Uh, the first thing you need to understand is, in a way, I want you to take it with a grain of salt because when we call these things masculine and feminine traits, it's just a way of categorizing them. There's nothing about masculine or feminine traits that has anything to do with gender. And I will repeat that a couple times tonight because we have to understand masculine and feminine traits does not have to do with your gender. It's not about your gender. It's not because you're a woman then you're supposed to have these feminine energy, and if you're a man, you're supposed to be a masculine energy. That is not how it works. Ideally, all of us have a perfect blend of the feminine and masculine energy. Okay, and I'll give you some examples of this. In fact, I'm going to pull up a visual for you So you can see exactly what we're actually talking about when we're discussing this concept of masculine and feminine energy. So hopefully you can see this chart here. So on the left-hand side in the pink, we've represented these concepts that are feminine energy. And on the right-hand side in the blue, we've represented the concepts that are masculine energy. Hopefully you can see everything well here on the Zoom call. So again, these traits are not exclusively for men or women. So it's not about your gender. Ideally, any man would have a balance of feminine and masculine energy traits, and every woman will have a balance as well of feminine and masculine energy traits. So we'll kind of go through the list here. If you take the first thing at the very top, I would rather discuss these in terms of being the emotional versus the rational. Is essentially that's the feminine energy is more of an emotional energy, and the masculine energy is more of a rational energy. And again, the way that you should run your life should be a proper balance of both, which I'll discuss. But under feminine energy, you have things like creative, whereas the inverse in masculine energy would be being logical. So creative versus logical. In feminine energy, you have spontaneous, doing things without a plan. In masculine energy, you have planned, doing things with a plan. In feminine energy, free. In masculine energy, structured. In feminine energy, you have love, but the emotional love. In masculine energy, you have principled love. The difference between these types of love is while both are beautiful, emotional love is the feeling that you get of love, the feeling of giving love, being loved. When you feel that love for a person, if you've ever felt like you were in love, all of that is emotional love. A principled love is doing the things that are beneficial towards something, focusing on what's beneficial towards said object. So you're actually guiding it by your thoughts. Principled love is extremely important because that's how emotional love is cultivated. The energy of love is cultivated through the principle of love. So actually focusing on the benefits, the good things, the good qualities of said target or object is principled love. And that's how you get the emotional love. On the feminine energy side, you have nurturing. On the masculine energy side, you have teaching. On the feminine energy side, you have empathetic. On the masculine energy side, you have self benefiting. With empathetic, you're concerned about how other people are feeling. With self benefiting, you're concerned about how to give yourself an advantage or an edge. This is important. This is not the same as selfishness. Selfishness lacks consideration of others. To be self benefiting, you don't have to lack consideration for other people. Feminine energy is social, very highly social. It's all about, again, the other people, connecting to the other people, vibing with the other people, talking with the other people. Masculine energy is highly internal, thinking, contemplating, meditating. It's connecting with yourself more so than connecting with other people. Again, feminine energy, harmonious. They're harmonious with nature. They're harmonious with the people around them. Feminine energy is seeking to, again, connect, whereas masculine energy is more innovative. When you're innovative, you're seeking to improve upon the current situation more so than being in harmony with the current situation. Of course, both of these concepts can be harmonized, but you want to think like how a builder has to chop down the trees and has to solidify the mud into bricks. He's not working with the nature, he's working against the nature to eventually create a house where he can hide from nature, right? So when the sun shines, it won't shine down hard on him. When the rain falls, it won't fall hard on him. That is innovation or building. So it's not just about harmonizing, it's about actually carving out a space. Cooperation is feminine energy, whereas assertiveness is masculine energy. So again, we think socially speaking, the feminine energy is very good at connecting with the other people. Masculine energy is very good at asserting, which is to tell the truth, although it may be inconvenient. Now, as we're going through these, I'd like to give you some reminders here. This is not about gender. It is not that a woman needs to have more feminine energy and a man needs to have more masculine energy. Actually, to the contrary, all of us need to have a balance. Do you notice as we go through these how all of these are good qualities on both the right and the left side? You should. You should. It would be a sign of your wisdom if you notice that both on the left and the right side, we have a combination of good qualities, all of which you should desire to possess. Does that make sense? You should be hearing things on the masculine side and that you say, oh, I would like to have that too. And hearing things on the feminine side that say, yeah, I need that ability as well. On the feminine side, contentment, very important. The ability to be happy with your current circumstances. On the right hand side, determination, equally important. The ability to drive toward a goal or a purpose or to prioritize moving forward in a goal or a purpose. Very important. On the left hand side, being helpful, very important. On the right hand side, responsible. So masculine energy is taking responsibility and thus having power, handling power very well. Whereas you see this trend on the left hand side of being very supportive, right? Informative is feminine energy, the giving of information, the communication, masculine energy, protective, not so much focused on the giving of information. Sometimes, in the spirit of being protective, an entity in masculine energy does not give information, like think the Pentagon, right? They're secretive about certain information, and they say that that's to protect the people of their country. Submissive, the ability to cooperate, to go with the flow. This is not a bad quality. This is a good quality. Masculine energy, directing, the ability to give instruction, to be the leader, to take leadership. Both are equally good qualities. You don't want to be a person that doesn't know how to be submissive. People will hate being around you. You have to have the ability to follow instructions, to go with the flow, right? To be able to let someone else take the lead. But you also need to have in your arsenal the ability to step up and take the lead and direct. Again, this is not about gender. This is about harmony, because we need all of these energies. Humility on the feminine side, masculine side, confidence. Okay, so there's feminine and masculine energy. And what we've done here is we've gone through the positive traits, these positive qualities that are good. Now, when a person becomes traumatized, then they're going to have negative, what I'll call negative qualities, or more accurately, the detrimental side of masculine and feminine energy. So let's take a look at that. We have that highlighted here in red. So when the feminine is in trauma, then you'll see the feminine energy acting out in anxiousness. The inverse of that is complacence, overconfidence. So some in trauma, both are negative qualities or detrimental qualities or detrimental energies to be in. When some people are in trauma, they become anxious, scared, afraid of their future, of things they can't control. Some people cope by going to the other extreme and either becoming numb or deciding that they don't have to worry about anything. They may conjure up ideas that they're invincible, or that they're like a god or something like that. But all of this is extreme in its trauma response. On the feminine side, you have negative, becoming very negative in thinking. In the masculine side, you have being stubborn. On the feminine side, you have being depressed. On the masculine side, you have being angry. In the feminine side, you have lonely. On the masculine side, you have isolating. So, whereas in feminine energy and trauma, a person may decide that they're struggling with loneliness or may feel that they're struggling with loneliness. Um, a person in masculine energy who defaults to that, they go to the other extreme and they actually purposely isolate themselves from other people. They may conclude that their pain comes from other people. And so they just stay away from other people. And they might feel like they don't know how to trust other people. You might be noticing as we go through these, you've had reactions on both sides of the spectrum, more on the feminine, more on the masculine as well. And the feminine energy, again, we're in trauma. So these are detrimental traits. We have blaming, and then we have self blame on the masculine. We have insecurity on the feminine and cockiness on the masculine. We have self abuse in the feminine, and we have being abusive to others in the masculine. So these just give us a little idea of how we can have these opposing, contrasting ways of seeing things and responding to things when we're in trauma, when we're triggered. And then finally, at the bottom here, we have trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn in the blue. And so fawn response is the inverse of fight response. It is the exact opposite, both extreme. Because when you're fighting, you're going against a person. When you're fawning, you're doing everything for the other person. So along what I've corresponded with fawn response, we have the traits of CPTSD, borderline personality disorder. The manifestation of fight response is narcissism. Again, on the feminine side, we have freeze response, which is where you literally do nothing in hopes that that will get you through. This manifests itself in dissociation, dissociative identity disorder, DID, where a person creates alternate personalities in order to cope with their trauma. On the inverse, you have doing something indeed, which is flight, running away, trying to outrun the enemy. And there you get the extreme of avoidance, avoidant personality disorder, or people with avoidant attachment. So those are our feminine and masculine energies kind of charted out so you can actually like visualize and see this. So what's important to understand, again, is that this is not about your gender. It's not about being a man or a woman. Being a man or a woman doesn't mean that you're supposed to have more masculine or supposed to have more feminine. In fact, to the contrary, we want to have a balance of all of these good positive traits and none of the traits that were in red. We don't want any of the trauma responses. So what happens in trauma is we tend to go to an extreme. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. These are extreme responses. And so what you might notice for yourself is you're a little bit imbalanced. And so you might see that you have more feminine energy traits. Again, that doesn't matter. You can be a man and have more feminine energy traits, or a woman and have more masculine energy traits. That's irrelevant. This is just ways of categorizing. Are you more emotional or more rational? So in whatever traits you have, whatever you see more of, either or, it's imbalanced unless you have a perfect harmony of both. You don't want to be more of one than the other. So if you were looking at that list thinking, yeah, I'm more on the feminine side, I relate more to that, I don't relate to the masculine side, then you're doing it wrong. Then you're going through life in a way that's detrimental. Not because the masculine is more beautiful or the feminine is more beautiful. If you notice all those traits on the positive side, they're all beautiful traits. And by the way, this list is not comprehensive. There's so many more traits for the sake of time that we can't get into discussing. But what you want to aim for is balance. Balance. So I'm going to bring the chart up again. I want you to think in terms of balance because you want to have both, right? And let me illustrate for you how this might look using the same chart. I want you to focus on the black letters because that's the positive traits of masculine and feminine energy. So in order to be balanced, you notice at the top between emotional and rational, should a person be just rational or just emotional? If they're healed, they will have the combination of both. It will be both rational and emotional. So how do we organize that? Well, you have to organize the rational self as playing the role of CEO of the self. That's the chairman, the executive. The job of the executive is to make a final decision. As we look at this, it should be obvious to you why the emotional side of yourself should not be making the final decision. Does that make sense? So then what is the emotional side supposed to play if it's equally important, and which it is? Just because it is not the chairman, the leader, the boss of the self, doesn't mean it's not equally important. The emotional side needs to play the advisory role, the advisory role. So I want you to picture a boardroom and you have five people sitting at a table. At the head of the table is the CEO or the chairman. The CEO's job, that's represented by the rational self, the CEO's job is to make the final decision. What are the other people at the table there for? They are the advisors in their respective expertise. They are going to let the CEO know what he should do based on the financial situation, based on the market, based on sales, and whatever it is that they know they will advise the CEO. He will take in all the information and make a logical, rational decision. Does that make sense? This is how we must organize our, our inner selves and other systems as well. So in relationships, in order to create attraction, experts have recognized that there is a need for polarity. Polarity helps to foster attraction. What does that mean? Well, basically, it helps if one of the persons in a romantic relationship plays more of one of the energy roles, while the other person plays more of the other energy role, because then it increases attraction. So if you are prone to play more of the feminine energy role in a relationship, you might notice as you look at these positive traits on the blue side that it would be attractive to you to have your mate behaving in that way. And if you are prone to play the energy roles on the rational side, the masculine energy roles, you might notice that it would be attractive to you to have your mate play the roles on the left-hand side of the page in the pink. Please understand, simultaneous to you playing these roles in your relationship, the reason we have to do this in a romantic relationship is because the two are coming together as one. So the polarity creates attraction, and also with the right amount of polarity, it can create harmony so that we're not both stepping on each other's toes. This is the concept of playing roles. But as an individual, in order to be healed, you as an individual have to have a combination of both of these traits. So you don't get to just sit on one side of the spectrum as a person, even though you may play a role at a certain time. To give you an example of this, you may have noticed when you get together with a group of people, you may find yourself playing either the role of the planner or the person who's more helpful, content, going with the flow, someone who's being more director, leader, or someone who's being more submissive and just letting the other person take the lead. This is happening in most all of our relationships, friendships, platonic relationships, and it's fine. This is what creates harmony. You're going to have to play a role in your relationships. And it's helpful to learn these concepts because then you can actually be consciously aware of what role you're playing and why, and what role you would like to see your partner play, and what traits you would like to see in them, and why you're finding certain traits as attractive. Focusing on yourself, though, as you look at the other traits here, creative and logical, we don't need more of one than the other. Although ultimately our logical self is the part that makes the final decision on things, creativity is extremely important, like equally as important as logic, not less. Spontaneity and planning. We need both. If you find yourself not being a very spontaneous person, I have a lot of trauma survivors that like to say, I have to have a plan. I only work well with a plan. And that is not balanced. That is not healed. That is not healed. If you're one of those people who says that, you need to learn to be more spontaneous. You need to learn to be more spontaneous. If you're someone who can't do plans, never has a plan, doesn't stick to a plan, well, then you need to be more structured, more planned. Does that make sense? Again, loving. Love is extremely important. It needs to be the baseline of everything we do. But some are more emotional in their love and empathy. And so they're waiting for the feeling of love and empathy to overtake them. You need to be more cognitive and principled in your love. You need to have principled love. What is principled love? It's deciding based on your morals, based on what you believe. It's deciding based on what is beneficial, to focus on everything that is beneficial about said target and to do the things that are beneficial towards said target. This is extremely important. Please understand how this works. This is how a couple can avoid falling out of love with each other. Picture a wife who has a husband. He used to be big and strong and really a go-getter, used to get things done, but now he has cancer. And his sickness has hurt him to the point where he's weakened and he can't do as much. Well, since he no longer has the traits that the wife used to love, does this give her an excuse to stop loving her husband? Many have struggled with this because they only understand emotional love. So they confide in their friends, you just don't feel the same about him anymore. Does that make me a bad guy? Yes, it does. Not because you're missing the feeling, but because you're entertaining the idea or the concept that you should love the person any less. Because what you lack is principled love. Principled love would allow you to see your husband in that weakened state and say, but I still decide to love him. I still choose to be by him, to be loyal, to give all the same benefits of love. Or likewise, we could reverse the illustration, and it could be a woman that, whether it's medical or age, doesn't have some of the same qualities that her husband once fell in love with. Again, would it be okay for the husband to say, I just don't love her the same now that she doesn't have some of the same physical traits she used to have? He would be lacking in principled love, because with principled love, he's made a decision to commit, to be loyal, to focus on what is beneficial about her, and to continue to do the things beneficial to her or for her. Does that make sense? Very important to understand how you need both. And through the principle love, it will recultivate the emotional love. Emotions ebb and flow, guys. They ebb and flow. So, of course, you're not going to always be head over heels for the person that you chose to spend your life with. That's just, let's be realistic. It will ebb and flow. But if you keep in the principle love, you'll get those feelings of emotional love again. So as you go through this list here, and you can go and take a screenshot or take a picture of it. I don't have this posted anywhere, but That's not important because this isn't even a comprehensive list of feminine energy and masculine energy traits. What this is just a snapshot to give you an idea of how concepts work. And these concepts exist in nature, they've always existed. Your job is to understand how to harness these energies so that you're balanced. Ideally, the perfect person has the balance. When you're healed, you'll notice that you are balanced. You're equally logical and creative. You're equally spontaneous and planning. And wisdom is understanding which trait to pull out at which time.